Patrick. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Staffbase, part of the founding team 8 years ago. So been there for quite a few years now, building communications products basically with my team. I'm super excited about this Partner Summit. In fact, I'm so excited I was in this corner where 2 times we already broke things. Let's see what happens this session, all right? No, kidding aside, really excited. This is my first partner-only event in all of Staffbase. So you can already see maybe on the non-Valo side of Staffbase, we've been not that big on like huge partner events so far. So I really like this development, this event, and looking forward to it in the future because we saw Frank, Juha, and Sven talk about this great opportunity, and maybe I can help you a little bit to make that opportunity a little bit more clear on what does that mean. We're going to talk about the products and what each of these products mean. Small anecdote, 5 years ago we did the very first user group meeting at Staffbase, and it was a room maybe half the size of this crowd. And now 5 years later, we have a big industry event called Voices with 1,000 people attending globally. So maybe that's a bit of a peek on what the partner community could look like in 5 years from now, right? But yeah, excited to be here as well at this stage. This session is going to be about 2 things. First of all, giving a rough overview of the products that we are selling at Staffbase and what each of those does, what they mean. Because I know it's a very diverse crowd. We have partners from all these different products, so I want to kind of level the ground a little bit for everybody. And then secondly, we're going to talk for each of those products a bit about what's new, what's coming next, what's the vision for that. All right? And I have one guest with me, Jarbas, who especially the people at Valo know. He's product manager for what we now call the Microsoft Channels unit. And he's going to take the whole part on Microsoft.
Hi.
Alrighty, let's get started. High-level summary. You already saw this slide with Juha. I tried this version where we see what's visible in the middle. I didn't sabotage your presentation, Juha. It wasn't me. Okay, so this is a high-level view on how we look at the platform, what we call the Employee Communications Management Platform. Maybe first reaction looks quite complicated. That's quite a lot that's in here, but don't worry, we'll go through it. It's not that complicated, and actually the products that you would be selling as partners, it's not like 5, 10 different ones. It's actually 4 main products that we have, and we're going to go through those. Before we look at them in more detail, I want to get a bit of the feel for the room, and actually all of you a feel for the room, because obviously all of you have worked with at least one product, but I would like to show a bit to the whole audience who has worked with what product already, and that maybe also helps you to have conversations in those 2 days now with, who are the others that are maybe selling this other product that I want to get into. So really quickly, can everybody stand up who has been already working with employee app and front door intranet? Yes, I said stand up because we want to get through until lunch, right? And do a bit of physical. Okay. So maybe like half of the partners here. Remember those faces. If you want to learn about app and intranet and what it means to work with those products, those are the experts. All right, cool, thank you. Email. Has anybody already worked with email? Okay, that's Workwine from the UK. Thank you, thank you. Okay. You see, there might be some opportunity to get into email. Valo, or in general Microsoft channels. That's probably okay. So it. Amazing to have you here. So app and intranet wasn't half of the room. Okay. And last but not least, comms control, Dirico. Anybody working with that already? No, I assume so. They have a few partners, but it's not merged yet, the whole program. But we're also going to talk about this latest addition to the portfolio. Cool. So let's get into it. Very high level, what we do at Staffbase. In the center, you see what we call the Staffbase Studio, and a premium version of it, Communications Control, Dirico. This is kind of where the communications workflow happens, right? Main persona, internal communication teams, and that's where they manage their work. Planning stuff, creating communication pieces, publishing them to different channels, measuring what comes in. That's the place where they do that. On the left and the right side, you see the Communications Central and Communications Booster. That's mainly how we structure our products. Communications Central is basically the hub, the place where your employees go to consume information, right? Main products here, employee app and front door intranet, as well as SharePoint and Teams. So those are, sometimes we call them destinations, right? A place to be. Main persona, employees. And on the right side, Communications Booster, just like the name says, this is something where you don't necessarily go to stay, but you rather receive something, an impulse, a push, an email, and it makes you go somewhere else, to a hub on the left side. So that's the pull where we grab people and get them to the Communications Central. So this is kind of how we think about the product world at Staffbase, how it fits together. Most customers already combine multiple different of these in order to have channels, destinations where people can go, consume information, but also have the right boosters to really efficiently, effectively get them to come there and stay. On the bottom, and maybe some in the back of the room don't see that, on the bottom we also have what Frank described as the whole product. So apart from technical, the other things that we offer, you know, like our success approach, the partner network, all of these things that you get besides the product itself that makes you successful, makes you get Staffbase. That's going to be less of my focus of the presentation. We're going to focus on the product, in the things you can touch and play with and features. Okay, now before we start with the first product, I want to show one more graph. This is a more detailed version of the one that Frank showed earlier. And I think this is also important to level a bit the ground for all of you on these different products. The bars that you see here are the annual recurring revenue that we at Staffbase earn with each of those products. And the light one, the top one, is this total ARR. And the highlighted one on the bottom is how much of that comes through partner, right? And so that's quite interesting. App and Intranet is the biggest product by far, which probably a lot of you assumed, and it has quite a substantial amount of partner ARR. Email, smaller, but still quite large compared to the other two. Not a lot of partner ARR. Dirico also, and Microsoft Channels Valo, obviously, we already learned that this is, in terms of Staffbase revenue, a relatively small business, but all of it is partner business, right? And what's quite interesting about this is, I don't think it's a judgment between the individual products. There's a lot of different history on why that is and market situation. But what's rather interesting is the future. What does that mean for you in terms of opportunity, right? And I think what you can see here is, first of all, app and intranet. There's a lot more business that can be done for partners here. And we would be more than happy to have a lot more of that, a higher percentage of that be based on partners, right? So that's something you can get into. I think a second one is starting new partner business with emails. So we had 2 partners stand up when it comes to email. This is a fantastic landing product, a very simple sell, an easy sell, and according to Gallagher, State of the Sector, the one most important communications channel worldwide. So something to maybe get into. Comms Control Dirico is the entire opposite. So more of a complex sale, complex topic, advanced communication teams. But also something where we don't have a lot of partner business yet, and I think something quite interesting when you're working with a lot of like ambitious communications orgs. Cool. Let's go into the first product. Communications management, so this centerpiece, right? This thing that combines everything and that's about the workflow. This studio and communications control is based on this communications workflow that we developed through intensive research and conversations with thousands of communicators throughout the years. And the idea is to understand the whole workflow. So when a communicator gets to work every day, what is it that they do, right? How do they plan? How do they create content? How do they measure success of the communication pieces? And all of this knowledge goes into basically this central product that we have. The first part that I want to talk about here is the Staffbase Studio. So this is integrated into all of the Staffbase products you can use this for. It comes from kind of the app and intranet angle, but all the other products are also integrated with the Staffbase Studio. And this is, like I said, our approach to covering this communication workflow across multiple channels. Main pieces in here are that you can plan your content, campaigns, editorial calendar. You can create your messages via an editor, rich content, rich editing, right? Multi-language. We have a very interesting feature, automated journeys, where you can define trigger points for employees when they get certain messages at certain times. Obviously, analytics is a huge part of this part of the product, but also enterprise-grade features like advanced targeting, branding, etc. So this is really kind of the core piece when I'm a communicator of what I'm interested in. When you're selling Staffbase, you should not just be talking about the channels, you should be talking a lot about the studio and what the communicator, how it impacts their work. That's what the studio is about. When we look at what's next for the studio, this is the roadmap. And as you can already see, it's quite a packed roadmap. There's a lot that we're doing here. Now is always what we're working on at the moment. Next is what we will be working on after that, so usually kind of the next quarters. And later is more the vision. This roadmap, if you don't know it yet, is something that we publish on a quarterly basis, and it's available to all of you. You can even share it with customers. That's maybe one of the main resources from the product team coming to you and the customers. So getting back to this product, the first 3 you see are in our next release, which is coming in the next days, and that's some interesting stuff. But I also want to highlight some specific ones. So this user registration dashboard tile, we have a new dashboard in that studio, and it shows you with a quick glance kind of all the things that you need to know right now. And this is a new one about user adoption that you can quickly understand how has that developed in the last couple of days. Have more employees joined the platform. And another thing I want to highlight is a new channel overview. So kind of the channel is the main structural element that we have for news pieces, posts, right? And the way we build channels is like probably 7 years ago, and I probably built it back then. So it was really about time for a new version that is better structured for organizations like DHL that have thousands and thousands of channels, and yeah, it was really not built for that anymore. And to get a little bit more visionary, not just talk about the stuff we're working on right now, but what's coming later, is I brought a couple of concept car screens for things that are a bit further out around the content creation experience. And we are planning some exciting things here to put a lot more focus on streamline on creating specifically content, basically hiding things that are not relevant in this phase of your day where you're creating content. Really focus, add smart ways to guide your content creation, like giving you basically recommendations on what you should do with your tone of this post, allowing you ways to collaborate with your colleagues inline based on that content piece, and lastly, smart recommendations while publishing, for example, which is the best time to post this, to really reach your employees in the moment where they also have time to actually consume content or are not overwhelmed by it. So those are just a couple of ideas, and that's kind of what the teams are thinking about in this area of the product. How can we improve lives for communicators day in and day out? The other thing I want to show is our campaigns feature. We already have that feature, and this is like an advanced version of what a campaigns overview look like. A campaign is basically multiple different posts or content pieces put together into something that follows a strategic goal, right? Like a communication around next year's strategy. And I have a goal that I want most of my employees to consume that. And this would then be the dashboard for the editors or for the communication leaders to understand how is that campaign doing, right? And not just in terms of communication metrics that you see on the top, but also, for example, what's the employee sentiment that I'm measuring through this campaign? What are the comments that we're getting and the performance of each of these individual communication pieces? So yeah, a big disclaimer here, concept cars. Highly likely those things will not end up in the product like you see it today, but just to give you an idea what we're working on, and also when you talk to customers, like what's the direction that Staffbase is going into with this. Okay, I know I'm going a bit fast, but I'm available both days. My team is available both days when you can come with questions if anything's confusing, right? I want to briefly talk about Dirico, which is also in this area of the product. Dirico is kind of about a similar topic, right? It's about the communications workflow as well, but I would consider it the premium product, right? Where the studio is something for great communication teams, Dirico is really for ambitious and large communication teams. You remember when Frank Wolf talked earlier about this newsroom concept, right? This agile content planning and collaboration. This is all what Dirico is about, right? So you see again communication strategy, idea management, content creation, topic planning, all the stuff that your communication teams is doing in a really like premium and advanced type of product. And the ability to publish that into all kinds of channels. The great thing about the Dirico acquisition earlier this year is they are already integrated with Staffbase. So the studio that I showed earlier and Dirico, those two products are integrated. You can plan your strategy and create content pieces in the Dirico newsroom, and then you can publish it into the Staffbase app and intranet using our News Central, even into SharePoint and Teams. Like all of that works together. And then after 2 weeks, you create an email reusing all of that content. Okay. Two things I want to highlight here quickly on the roadmap for Dirico. First of all, they're working on entirely new analytics, which is something that their customers are obviously very happy about. And secondly, that's very interesting, an external portal, so that people that are not part of Dirico, not part of the comms team, can provide input, can collaborate with the comms team. In this case, the first use case is ideation. So basically employees, interested advocates throughout the company can provide ideas on what the communications team should be, focusing on, what they should communicate, and they don't need access to the whole platform. They just get access to this one little ideation piece. Really exciting, yeah. Cool. Two more products that I want to talk about that are very different to the studio and the communications workflow, and those are the channels. So before we talked about, right, communication pieces, how to plan those, create those, measure those, but now how do they actually get to the employees? And this is what, for example, app and intranet are about. The first one, and that's where we come from, we saw that whole history of Staffbase a bit earlier with the employee app, and I'm getting a little bit emotional because employee app is the first thing we built, and I was still a developer at Staffbase back then when we started this, and so there's a lot of what I built still in there, but obviously the teams now improved it and made it better and proper. But at the core, this is still a lot of what we do at Staffbase, right? We started with a news feed, and the news feed is still the central thing of what we do today. And I think that's quite incredible throughout 8 years to kind of stay true to your journey. We launched more than 300 apps in the stores to multiple millions of employees. And year after year have been recognized as leaders, right? We saw the Incometa Award, but really all kinds of awards that you can also kind of use in your argumentation to clients. And obviously we also manage some of those high complex environments, right? So this app that you're seeing here is also the same app that Aldi is using all over the world, DHL is using, Walgreens, GE, that's all this mobile app that their employees have in their hands. I sometimes catch myself when DHL brings a package to me, I ask the driver if they use the Smart Connect app. Apparently not all of them are. Cool, couple of highlight features here that you have. Obviously it's this having it in the store. That's really important, that really employees get it very easily. There's no complex, go there and click this link. It's go into the store and look for your company name and you will find the app, right? Native push notifications, such a small thing, but it's such an incredible difference to not having a native app. Having the ability to push something to thousands of employees within seconds. That's really have been key for the growth of Staffbase. Yeah, rich personalization, localization, plugins and integrations we talked about earlier, right? Bring in HR and other engaging functionalities, and employees are not always just interested in news. So this is a lot less about just communication and a lot more about making sure that employees have like a digital home for themselves. And while they're in the digital home, they also consume communications. The second part that we have here is the front door intranet, right? Next to Sven joining in 2019, the other big thing that happened in 2019. And I think what made us so successful here is that we really focused on shop window, not bringing everything in this intranet, but making it easy to navigate, making it easy to edit, kind of a modern approach to intranet that's available to all employees. And it's still tightly integrated with other systems. So we have Microsoft 365, we have a launchpad where you can go into all kinds of services. So there's still this aspect of bringing your whole digital workplace into it, or as much as you want, but really emphasis on keeping it simple, the most important information relevant for all employees. And yeah, some key functionalities, again, similar, very tailored experience, optimized for reach. Pages are really versatile, I think, compared to a lot of the other intranets that we have out there. Tools, services integrated. Microsoft 365 already deeply integrated, but you already heard earlier, especially with the Microsoft Channels unit, we're going to go a lot deeper in terms of Microsoft integration. Federated search, Search in general, we've developed or improved throughout the last couple of years substantially. So all the kind of stuff you would expect in an intranet, obviously. And one last slide here in terms of what's going to be new on the intranet side of things. This is also part of that release that comes in the next days. And you see there's quite a bit coming. Hashtag explore page, Google Drive, federated search, comment reporting. But two things that I'm really excited about that the teams are working on at the moment. One is an entire redesign of the whole intranet and mobile experience. A lot of what we built there is still from 8 years ago, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, and by now we're getting quite some feedback that Staffbase used to be that innovative vendor, but some of the user experience is not quite there anymore. So we're having a major project internally right now to revamp, especially the user experience and the user interface. And the second one is we got quite some critique in the past about just the mobile app not being there anymore, the performance, the fluffiness, the native features. So that's something we're working on now as well. Things like biometric authentication, bringing podcasts in is on the roadmap. We have a whole team that's just dedicated by now to mobile experience. And I think that's exciting as well. And with that, I think we talked a lot about studio and communications workflow, app and intranet. Apparently, most of the room is from the Microsoft world, so let's give hands for Joris.
Thank you, Patrick, and I'm very happy to be here for two main reasons. I have been working for Valo since 2019, and this is the first time that I'm meeting our partners in person. And this is a very, very special thing for me. The second thing is that I'm from Brazil, I live in Germany, so speaking Portuguese in Germany is difficult. Now here I have the opportunity to do that. So I'm talking Portuguese to everyone, like in the reception, people working there. That's really nice. Okay, so I'm here to talk about what we do at our Microsoft Channels unit. And what I'll be mostly talking here about is the current status that we have. This is not the current status. That's a bad pointing, like to have this issue. In any case, I'm going to talk about the current status that we have, and keep in mind that things are changing. As Frank mentioned, we have a repositioning that is planned for Internet and Connect, and teamwork. We are going to move that from a high investment mode into maintenance mode. One of the big things, or what we do at our unit, or previously with Valo, was to build solutions on top of Microsoft 365. We have also done other things with Microsoft SharePoint on premises. I am not very proud about that, but yeah, we have also been there. And now the focus has been mostly on the Microsoft 365 part. And the big advantage for all the things that we have done was the flexibility that we have offered with our products. So our partners, they have been, it has been very easy for them to customize our offerings, to change that, to meet the requirements of the customers. And that applies to all the things that we have done. Intranet, where partners have been able to bring the consultancy, defining with the customer the information architecture, how an internet should look like. The same for Connect. For Connect also, configuring the application, bringing the tabs, the widgets the customers need. And for Teamwork, with the provisioning part, it's extending the provisioning story. We have partners that are very specialized in that. And right, let's take a look at intranet. So along with the very descriptive parts that we have here, I can explain to you a bit how an intranet looks like that is customized with Valo Intranet. Many of the partners here, they can explain this here much better than me, but usually it comes with a global navigation that comes with the resources, simplifies the findability of information, followed by a section, which is the main section here. We've highlighted information as defined by people creating the content, and quick links to simplify the access. Then we have a section, which is this one here with mine. You can't read that, but it's my news and my events. And these are web parts. A web part in Microsoft SharePoint is kind of a visual component to display information usually. And we bring different web parts. So depending on the use case, you can configure this page or any other page in your intranet with these components to build that based on the needs of your customers. And also, like, very, very important part here is the Value Toolbox, which is this very small sign here. And that centralizes all the content creation part into one single place. So if you want to create a news, if you want to create an event, all of that happens from this single part. What I'm not going to cover in this session here is the roadmap for all of these products, for Internet, Connect, and Teamwork. We're going to talk tomorrow more about, like, the direction where we are going with all our main initiatives. So if you want to learn more about that, come tomorrow at our session, my session with Tina, where we are going to talk about the product strategy for the Microsoft Channels unit. Right, then we have Value Connect. And the very special thing about Connect is that it brings applications from the digital workplace of our customers into one single place, which is Microsoft Teams. A very common use case here for this application is to bring the SharePoint intranet into Microsoft Teams so the users don't need to break their flow of work, especially when they are very heavily using Microsoft Teams, which is the common scenario for everyone, I think, nowadays using Microsoft 365. And what we also have is the Connect Me, which is the application that you can see here on the first screenshot. So Connect Me is about improving the productivity of the users. So it brings different information into one single place to simplify, like, the access, the findability, concentrating everything in one place based on these widgets that are configurable. And there's a partners, so you can also develop your own widgets, as some partners have done already, and bring information from different sources, not just the things that we provide, like bringing documents from OneDrive into Connect Me, or news from SharePoint into Connect Me, but you can also extend these widgets and come up with your own integrations. And finally, we have Value Teamwork. So Value Teamwork is all about provisioning and governance on top of Microsoft 365. We have two main use cases for the customers. The one is the dashboard. This is the one that you see here. And here, users come usually to find a workspace. What is a workspace? A workspace in Microsoft 365 is anything like a Microsoft Teams team, or a YAML connected group, or a SharePoint modern team site. And we also support the SharePoint classic sites or communication site. So as a user, I come here to find my workspaces and have this big overview in one single place, which also simplifies, like, accessing those areas, collaboration spaces. But as a user, I can also come here to request new workspaces. And that's a big part of this product. So not only simplifying the visualization and definability of these collaboration spaces, but also allowing people to request workspaces based on templates that are created for specific use cases. And that's the part where we then have the administrators and key users in an organization, as we call them. So people can then create these templates based on specific use case. Let's say one use case would be an HR onboarding. So you can define this HR onboarding template with governance aspects and so on. So I'm not going to go very into detail here. But the idea is to simplify the process so people would request a workspace that's ready to go, so you can just focus on your work. And the very big part, and that's becoming more important now that we changing the focus of our unit, are the cross-platform integrations. So Staffbase already supports integrations with Microsoft 365, and the other way around. So when I'm talking about cross-platform, I'm talking about connecting Staffbase platform with Microsoft 365 and Microsoft 365 with Staffbase. So as I mentioned, we already support many integrations. One of those integrations is what we call the Staffbase News Central, and this is about bringing data from the Staffbase app into SharePoint. So bringing the news into SharePoint, simplifying the findability of this news inside of SharePoint. We also support accessing the Staffbase intranet from the Microsoft Teams. And the other way around is that, for example, in Staffbase intranet, we allow users to access data coming from Microsoft 365, like files and calendar, directly from their Staffbase intranet. So this is an area that we want to intensify the investment, the focus, the development. And tomorrow we are going to talk more about that, more in detail about our plans, direction we are going. And I invite you to come tomorrow at 9:30. Be there, and thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you, Jarbas, and I can also only invite everybody to come tomorrow. I think this was incredibly helpful, again, to bring the whole room onto kind of one level. What is it that we offer today? And then specifically for Microsoft, tomorrow's session is going to be a lot more insightful on what's coming next, right? Cool. I'm realizing I've been rushing quite a bit on the first part, so apologies if something was a bit too fast, but again, the whole team is here the next 2 days and also beyond that to ask questions. And side benefit is we get earlier to lunch, right? So I have maybe 10 minutes left. The last major product that I want to talk about briefly is Staffbase Email. I know that that's potentially a bit of a polarizing topic. It's a very different perception, especially in DACH versus the English-speaking world in Europe, North America, where email is such a table stake, where every communication team uses email to communicate. Gallagher's State of the Sector again says that email is the most used digital channel for internal communications and employee engagement. And they don't say that because that's their opinion, but because they surveyed thousands of communicators, and that has been their response, right? In Germany, for some reason, email is a bit of an enemy, right? That's why I have the intranet and the app, that I don't need email anymore. But our idea is that you need to combine those different things. You need to combine the central and the boosters in order to reach all the employees in their flow of work, or whatever state they're in, whatever time they're in, to really reach them and engage them with your content. And that's why you also need email in most cases. A couple of functionalities that make our email unique, which is based on a merger with the company BananaTech from Canada, which was the market leader in email communications, email employee communications. We have a really easy to use editor, which is kind of leading in the industry, drag and drop. You have real-time collaboration in that editor for emails. They have great templates and branding presets where you can make sure that editors have to use your branding that you gave them, because that's apparently quite a concern, that like emails that are sent by individual editors are quite all over the place when they reach employees. It's integrated with app and intranet, obviously. Our editorial calendar and the content creation in the studio can be used for emails. And quite important is also this Outlook and Gmail integration. So there's native add-ins that you can use within Outlook and Gmail, which means that you can use your distribution lists that you already have locally to send emails, rather than uploading all your users to the web app, right? Rich targeting options, analytics, enterprise controls, obviously, the kind of stuff that we need to have. A bit of a roadmap here as well. Similar to the other things you see here, stuff that helps communicators have better communication options. You see stuff that supports scalability needs of enterprise level customers, and you also see APIs and ways to better integrate with the product, right? So that's kind of common across all these different products, our focus themes. Two things that I want to highlight. One that we're currently launching is tables in email, which sounds a bit 1990, but apparently is a big thing, and tables are just great for certain information, so here you go. Kind of the key feature apparently in here, you can copy and paste tables from other tools into it. And the other thing is email personalization, something that we already have for app and intranet, that you can have placeholders for like names and other employee data. That's also coming to email now. Okay, with now, I mean soon. All right, and that's already been it on our 4 main products. I realize this has been a bit fast and has been a lot of information, a lot to digest, especially if some of those products were new for you. So 3 key takeaways on like strategy, Staffbase, what are we doing in terms of product, right? First thing is we're continuing to invest in these individual channels, right? The employee app, the front door intranet, the email, and the Microsoft 365 channels. That's a key focus. That's where we earn our money. Secondly, we're substantially investing, meaning proportionally more than in the first point, into this platform, this thing where communicators live, the planning, the content creation, the publishing, and the analytics that I talked about earlier. Bringing that Dirico product closer to the studio and making both of that one. There's going to go a lot of money into that, especially as Sven said earlier, that everything is increasing. One thing he mentioned is we're increasing the level of seniority with customers, right? Instead of selling to an internal communications manager, we want to sell to the chief communication officer. And that's part of that. The chief communication officer is not so much interested in how does that employee app work and get the content to an employee. They're interested in what's our communication strategy, how does that contribute to the company goals, and that's what we do with Studio and Dirico. And lastly, I think that's interesting, especially also for all of you in the room, improving ways to integrate with the platform, more APIs, more SDKs, better developer experience. If you recently checked our developer portal, there has been a huge revamp of the developer portal, whole different experience, much more content, and also product partnership management. This goes beyond just technical integration, so I would also love to hear from you in the next 2 days. What is it that you as partners need from product and partnership management? I already have a couple of conversations with some of you where we have some open topics, but would love to learn more here. And that's been pretty much it. Not sure if we want to do Q&A now or throughout the next days. Looking into what's the schedule? I think we're at 15, so we actually have 15 minutes left.
Yeah, we have 15 minutes left. Any questions? It means that it was a very good presentation. No questions, everything is clear. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
I have a question regarding the multi-channel, and we've had discussions with clients that come from a SharePoint on-premise background, and they're used to publishing news based on tagging. So I think, and that's very different to how Staffbase thinks of news and channels, because they think I have a piece of news, I tag it, and then automatically gets displayed in the, gets to the different target groups. So in the big projects, we have a lot of transitional work to be done to really, coming from this tag-based distribution of news to a channel-based thing with Staffbase. Is there going to be more work on hashtags and distributing news based on tags? Which I see as a kind of prerequisite to tackle the multi-channel a bit easier.
Right. It's quite a big question. I think there's a lot of different angles to answer that. The first one, I want to emphasize that we have this big emphasis on a channel-based targeting at Staffbase because we think you have to manage your audiences top-down. You have to understand what are the audiences that you want to communicate to, and they usually don't change frequently, so you should set that up. You should set up the structure, you should set up ownership for these different audiences, and then communicate in that structured way. That's the whole idea why we're all in on channels, right? But we also realized texts do have a place to be there, and that's why we invested into it.
Hashtags, maybe
Yeah.
I should specify that.
Hashtags.
Hashtags are one thing, so I think we talk about managed tagging here, country.
Right.
Different audiences.
Something we did work on was user-based hashtags in the past. This hashtags explore page that I showed, where you can have then one page to see everything on the tag. But I think that's what you mean, goes in a different direction, right? I think it's interesting, but especially when it comes from the SharePoint world, I think there are two options for those type of clients. One is migrating your content, going over to more like the Staffbase world, right? And changing that, going for News Central, Staffbase Studio, etc. The other thing, however, that we want to do, and maybe Jorba's going to talk a little bit about that tomorrow, is we're going to find ways how SharePoint-based customers can reuse their existing content and show it in the mobile app. And I think how we are reusing that structure and labels, hashtags is going to be important when developing that feature, actually. Not sure, do you want to add anything on that? No. Okay, yeah. But maybe that's something when we develop that feature that we should follow up on, like how can we allow those customers reuse their existing investment and just add an employee app, because that's what they need right now. Right? Cool, thank you.
Any other questions?
So a lot of our Valo intranet deployments have rich search experiences and heavy document management with document metadata, refiners. So I know that there's some integration with document libraries in Staffbase. Are there plans to build out search strategy within Staffbase?
I'll go for a high-level one, and maybe Jorgos can add the real stuff. Then. Okay. I think, first of all, high level here, we see a development. Frank mentioned that also earlier, that use cases in that old intranet world are splitting. It's not everything has to be in one tool anymore. So one thing that we carefully want to do is we want to separate that shop window intranet, modern intranet, the start page, from deep use cases like document management, library use cases. So that's one thing we see, Staffbase front door intranet, and also like the thing you see in Teams as the first thing you see. We don't want this to be focused on document management and library. We think search is important for that. We're going to work on search experience, both within Microsoft 365 and the standalone world, also that the two are connected. The document use case, we're going to move that more and more just into the Microsoft world. And that's one potential direction, actually, something Jorgos will talk about tomorrow, where the Valo intranet could go into more into those document cases. If that goes into the direction that maybe.
It's exactly what you said. So the future at this point that we see for Valo Internet, and we are really open for feedback, is this concept of the library intranet or resource hub, and that's very focused on organizing information inside of SharePoint and Microsoft 365, and it applies definitely what's information, so the documents that you have. This is one of the examples, and how I can structure that and organize that in a way that's easier for my employees to find. And search plays definitely a very important role there. So when we think about the internet in the future, this is what you mentioned, like the library internet, a direction where we want to go more. Now, nothing to commit at this point, as we are, well, with a good work as product managers running the discovery work to better understand the use cases and how we can do this change in a way that makes sense for everyone.
Does that answer? Follow up question? Conversation with a wine tonight?
Exactly.
Okay, we'll follow up at the vineyard. Okay.
We are holding for questions.
But I mean, we can also, we're going to be here both days, everybody, then we get an, oh, we have one more. Okay. But then lunch afterwards.
Yes, Dr. Rauer from Hashtag. I have a question. I think it's quite a visionary question. I don't know if you have set it up for yourself already, but will Jericho be the new Staffbase studio in the future?
It's a fantastic question, something we've been working a lot on internally those last couple of weeks. How we want to set it up is similar to how I mentioned it. Studio is kind of the standard thing that everybody gets, and Jericho is going to be the premium version of the studio, and they're going to be very deeply integrated with each other. Jericho has this specialty that it's more all comms, not just internal comms, so that's going to be a difference between the two. But functionally, they're going to be a lot closer. Obviously, bear in mind some of that will take a bit of time to develop. But yeah. Cool.
All right. Any other questions before we start with lunch?